Welcome to the dark streets of Victorian London, a place where evil has risen from the deep and the fate of the mortal world lies in the hands of beasts and devils. In Terrors of London, players assume the roles of powerful characters called overlords. Each overlord represents one of the four factions in the game: undead, beast, mortal, and spirit. Players will take turns buying and playing cards until only one player remains standing and is victorious. To set up your first game of Terrors of London, first determine a first player. You may do this by any manner you wish, but from this moment on, this player will choose first during setup. Each player will select from one of the four factions, taking the overlords of that selected faction and choosing one to play. The remaining overlords are placed back in the box. Each player then takes a health marker and places it on their maximum health of their overlord card. Then each player will take the influence cards associated with their overlord and select two of the four to keep. As this is your first game, we strongly suggest that you select the cards with the following symbol on them. Now that you each have your overlord and influence cards, it is time to round out your starting decks. Each player will take 5 cultists and 3 fanatic cards. Combine these 8 cards with the influence cards previously selected and shuffle. This will be your starting deck. Any remaining cultists, fanatics, influence cards are returned to the box. Next, it's time to create the market and the street. This is where new cards will become available for the players to purchase. Note here that you may have an optional board if you have the deluxe version. If so, please set up on that. Otherwise, anywhere between the two players is fine. To create the market, shuffle the remaining cards except acolytes into a draw pile, placing this deck between the players. Shuffle the acolyte cards as well and place them face down in a separate area between the players. To set up the street, draw 5 cards from the market and lay them face up next to the market in a row. Each player now draws their starting hand of cards. The first player this time will only draw 4 cards, and the other player will draw 5. Note that this is the only time a player will draw less than 5 cards. You are now ready to play your first game of Terrors of London. Before we show you how to take a turn in the game, however, let's first get you familiar with the cards of the game. First, let's look at your Overlord card. On this card, you will find the following information: name, faction icon, health track, and overlord action. You will also see indicators for where to place cards at various stages of the game, such as your discard and draw piles, play area, and relics. For now, the 3 most important aspects to learn are the health indicator, faction icon, and overlord ability. The health indicator is simply used to track your overlord's health throughout the course of the game. You can never exceed your maximum health, and if at any time you fall below 1, then you have lost the game. The faction icon indicates which faction your particular overlord has control of within the City of London. This will become important when we look at influence cards later, but know that some monsters in the game will share this faction. The overlord ability is a power unique to your particular overlord, allowing you an edge over your opponent. Here we see that Methuselah has an ability that allows him to draw a card, then discard a card once per turn. Next, let's look at your Overlord influence cards. Each player has 2 of these special cards in their deck at the start of the game. These cards have an ability that triggers when they are played, but they also have an ability that is only activated if the player also has monsters of their associated faction in play at the time they play the influence card. Monsters, acolytes, and also your starting cultist and fanatic cards provide resources that you will be able to spend to purchase new cards or even damage your opponent with. In addition, more powerful monsters can have unique abilities that add to their value when played. We'll cover how some of these work while explaining a turn. In addition, you can refer to your rulebook for a further explanation of the specific types of abilities. Monsters can also have horde abilities listed at the bottom of their card. In Terrors of London, players can group monsters together to form powerful hordes that will allow them to activate horde abilities that we just saw at the bottom of those monster cards. Once a monster is joined into a horde, however, it cannot be unjoined and added to a different horde during the same action phase. To form a horde, you must have 2 monsters in play that have compatible horde indicators. There are 2 ways to tell if monsters are compatible. The first being that the faction symbol at the bottom of the card matches the type of monster it is forming a horde with on that side, or the second being that the arrows at the bottom of both cards are the same color as the arrows on the monster they are being joined to on that side. Once a horde has been formed, the player has the choice of activating one of the listed horde abilities across the cards, but only one. An existing horde may be expanded upon as well by joining a new monster to either side of the horde following the same rules. This will allow the player to activate any one ability within the horde that has not yet been used this action phase. Be aware some monsters have 2 horde abilities, and these should be treated independently when choosing which ability to activate. Finally, we have relic cards, which will gain the player additional abilities they may use during their turn. These cards, unlike other cards in the game, are instantly placed into the player's play area when purchased. Be aware though that a player may only have 3 relics in play at any given time. The last 2 symbols to show you will have noticed across the cards as we were explaining them, and they are simply 2 resources to be aware of. You have coin and power. There are also additional symbols in the game such as regeneration, and we'll cover those as we're going through. But be aware that coin is how you are going to purchase cards, and power is how you are going to damage your opponent. Now that you have an understanding of the cards within Terrors of London, let's explain how a game is played and see how these cards work together.
Wait! Before explaining a game turn, let's give the one golden rule of Terrors of London. If the text on a card contradicts a rule, the card takes precedence.
Okay, with that out of the way, let's begin. Players will alternate taking turns until there is a winner. On their turn, the player will complete 3 phases: the action phase, the cleanup phase, and the draw phase. In the action phase, the player may take any number of actions they wish, and as many times as they wish, provided they have the cards and resources to do so. The actions they may take are as follows: play action, which is simply to play a card from their hand to the play area. Buy action, allowing them to purchase new cards. Attack action, dealing damage to their opponent. Horde action, which we previously discussed earlier. Relic action, allowing them to activate a relic they have control of. Overlord action, which activates the ability on their Overlord card. Haunt action, which activates the text on a monster that began your turn in play. And finally, pass action, which ends their action phase. In the cleanup phase, the player discards the cards from their play area to their discard pile, and then they move to the draw phase where they will draw a new hand of cards and play passes to the other player. Let's go through the various actions now and see some examples. First, there is the play action. With a play action, the player plays a card from their hand to their play area face up. This will gain the player any resources listed on the card that are instantly available to spend. In addition, they will be able to activate any unique abilities listed on the card as long as they can meet the requirements. Remember that influence cards played will only gain their activated ability if a faction monster is already in play before playing the influence card. Buy action. With the buy action, the player must be able to pay the cost of the monster from coin they have already generated from cards in their play area. You may choose any monster or relic from the street area for its printed cost, or you may draw a card from the Acolyte deck for a cost of 2 coins. Whenever a space in the street is empty, it is always refilled right away. When buying a card, place it face up in your discard pile unless the card has the claim ability printed on it, in which case it is placed face down on top of your draw pile. Remember that relic cards purchased are instantly placed into the player's relic area face up and are available for immediate use. Attack action. With the attack action, the player deals direct damage to their opponent. In Terrors of London, damage is always inflicted directly to your opponent. You will pay for this damage using power generated from the cards already in your play area. For each power assigned, the overlord of their opponent will take 1 damage and reduce their health tracker. Some cards in the game may reduce the damage taken though as well. Horde action. We have previously covered the Horde action, so there's no need to cover this one in detail, but this can generate even more power and coin and abilities for use during your action phase, so use this wisely. Relic action. When taking a relic action, the player activates the ability of a relic under their control. Some relics do require costs be paid prior to use, and this cost must be paid before activating the ability. Overlord action. This will activate the ability that is printed on your Overlord card as we saw before. Haunt action. The Haunt action requires all of the following. You choose a monster that began this turn in the player's player area. The monster's Haunt token has its Dismiss side up, and the monster in question has not yet been activated by a Haunt action this turn. If all of these conditions are met, the player resolves the Haunt action by activating all of the monster's resource, keyword, and unique abilities. Pass action. This will end the player's action phase, but note that this action may only be taken if the player has 1 or less cards in their hand. If when taking this action you still have 1 card, then that card is placed face down on top of your draw pile.
Before you send these poor people out into the terrors of London, perhaps you should explain a few abilities that they may not be familiar with yet.
Hey, I'm not trying to send them out unprepared. So at this point, you are ready, however, to play your first game of Terrors of London, but you may still need to consult your rulebook for explanation of certain terms and abilities. If you're comfortable doing so, then you may end the video here and begin playing. Otherwise, please continue while I explain some of the abilities we have not yet covered in this video. Haunt. This ability makes use of the included Haunt tokens in your game box. When a monster has or is granted Haunt, take a Haunt token and place it on the monster. If the monster becomes part of a horde, flip the token to the Dismiss side. Any monsters at the end of your turn with a Haunt token flipped to the Haunt side at the end of your turn remain in your play area. This means that they will be available for activation again on your next turn. At the start of your action phase, flip any Haunt tokens to their Dismiss side. At the end of your action phase, discard any tokens and monsters in play showing the Dismiss side of the token. A monster may only have 1 Haunt token on it at any time. Command. When activating the Command ability, the player chooses a monster from their discard pile with a coin cost of 3 or less and places it into their hand, making the monster instantly available via the play action. Curse. Whenever you target your opponent with a curse ability, they must choose to either lose 2 health or discard 1 card from their hand. This is not damage, and it cannot be reduced by things such as armor. Speaking of armor, this is an effect on some cards in the game which can reduce incoming damage to your Overlord. But just as I stated, it cannot reduce damage from effects that can cause a lose health effect, such as the curse. Destroy. When using the Destroy ability, you choose one of the following options. Either choose a card anywhere in play and place it in the owner's discard pile, or remove a card from the street and replace it. When choosing the second option, that card is removed from the game permanently. Muster. When activating the Muster ability, take a Muster token and place it on top of your draw deck. During your next draw phase, you will draw 1 additional card for each Muster token on the deck. Discard these tokens when drawing new cards. Rage. The Rage ability allows you to either gain additional power or channel that rage into regeneration. You choose to either gain 2 power or 2 regeneration. Regeneration allows your Overlord to regain health. Remember, you can never go over your maximum health. Sacrifice. Activating the Sacrifice ability allows you to remove a card from your own play area permanently from the game unless otherwise stated. However, for this sacrifice, you will gain 1 power for each card removed. I hope this video has prepared you for the terrors of London you will soon face, and that you feel you are ready to play the game and defeat your opponent. If you have any questions or need any clarification, please consult your rulebook or ask in the comments below. As this how to play video was produced during the game's Kickstarter, the final rules and artwork may have changed. Please refer to your most current rulebook for any changes.
Now go forth and terrorize London.